Hi, I'm Paige and this is part 4 of the How to Quilt series. This video is all about basting the quilt and specifically pin basting it. That's my preferred style of basting, and so that's what I'll be showing in this video. This is what we would call a quilt sandwich. Just as a little example, this pink fabric would be our quilt top, and then under that layer you have the batting, and there's all sorts of lofts of batting. Some are really low loft, and so it's not really squishy, and some are high loft, and it kind of gives a blanket that's thicker and squishier. And then you'll have the quilt back, and putting all of these together is called the quilt sandwich. And then you want to baste it together so that nothing shifts or moves. You don't want the bottom to be moving a lot and the top looking smooth, and then you're done quilting it and you look on the back and there's folds everywhere and creases. With all the work you're doing, you don't want to have that. You want your quilt to look nice and flat and smooth. The better job at basting you do, the better your quilt is going to turn out in the end. My preferred method is by pin basting, and so you use safety pins, and specifically quilting pins. So these pins are just like a safety pin. They are a safety pin, but there's a bend in them. I don't know if you can quite see that, but they're just bent a little bit in the middle. That way, when it goes into the fabric still lays flat, and the pins don't alter the flatness of the fabric. So this is what I get, is a size 1. It's the smallest of the pins. There's bigger ones if you're more comfortable with using bigger pins, but I like the small ones. So this is a size 1 pin, and I bought a big box. There's a lot more, but they're on the quilt right now. So this is a box of 300, and this is what I've used to do up to a queen size, and so this will be enough pins. So as you can see right here, I've got my quilt all ready to go. It's already basted, and I'm going to show you how I do that in just a moment. If you'd like to know more about batting specifically and what kind to choose and what's best for what you're going for, then I'm going to put a link to a really great article by Suzy Quilts going over everything about batting and materials, and it'll be a really good resource if you're curious about what kind you should be using. The kind that I use is just a thin 100% cotton quilting batting. All right, let me show you how I actually pin basted this. Okay, so I'm gonna get started on basting the quilt. So I have the backing and the batting and then the quilt top. Then to kind of stabilize everything on the ground, I'm just gonna use some painter's tape to tape down the edges. And then I have all of my basting pins, and there's 300, and I probably won't use them all for a quilt this size, but I definitely will be using a lot of them. So let me show you how I set it up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to prepare the back. So the right side is going to be touching the ground, and then I'm going to go around the perimeter, and I'm just going to be taping everything to where this piece of fabric is absolutely smooth. And that is the first step. Okay, so now that this is completely smooth, I'm going to do the same thing with the batting, but I don't really have to tape it down. I'm just going to smooth it out over the surface of this backing fabric. And this batting is bigger than this square, so I'm just going to start at an edge, and I want to be able to see a little bit of this fabric, so I'll line up the batting very close to the edge and then cut off any of the excess so that I can see the actual perimeter of the quilt backing. Okay, now the batting is completely smooth, and I'm going to take my quilt top and I'm going to spread it out over this and do the same thing over again. I'm going to smooth it until it's completely flat, and then I'll start pinning. Okay, so it's all smooth now, and I'm gonna get my pins, and I'm just going to start from the center, and I'm going to be pinning about every hand's width away. So a pin here, place your hand, a pin here, in all different directions. I will definitely be having pins in every single open white spot, but even closer than that. So it's a lot of pins, and one of my tips is to avoid anything getting shifted. I will lay down my cutting mat when I'm going to do the center, like this. I'll set it down, that way I can move and work on top of it without all the layers underneath being shifted as I'm sitting on it. And I've done this same technique on the carpet before, and instead of tape, I've just actually pinned through. I've placed a pin through the fabric into the carpet and the padding, and I have sat on just a big plank of wood so that I'm not putting an indentation into the quilt sandwich and making a pole or a pucker or anything. But just using a flat board or mat will kind of help distribute your movements. So now you're just going to cover the whole thing in pins. Now that the quilt is completely pinned, you can pull up the tape and roll or fold it up until you're ready to begin quilting. Once you have the whole quilt basted, you can move it around as you like. Everything is secure and in place. You don't have to worry about anything shifting because it's very secure. So in between the times when you're going to quilt it, you can fold it up and you can roll it. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we actually start quilting this. If you like this video and you want to see more, click subscribe and the little bell alert, and you'll be notified anytime that I post a video to this channel. Until next time, go get creative and make something you love. Bye.